What's up, family? Welcome to another episode of the Traffic, Sales, and Profit podcast, where we help Black entrepreneurs learn how to scale to 6, 7, 8 figures and beyond, all while thinking about how to build generational wealth, like real generational wealth. Now, that's a buzzword that's almost overused in our communities a lot of times, but guess what? Today, we're going to get to it, and I have probably the best person I know to break this conversation down. Today, we're joined by Amelia Thomas. Hey, Amelia, how are you?
I'm great, Lamar. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now, Amelia is the one who probably is one of the people single-handedly probably responsible for teaching me the most about wealth in conversations I've had with her. She's one of our TSP Mastermind members, which is why I had a t-shirt on today, right? I've been saving this for your interview. One of our TSP Mastermind members, longtime member of the Mastermind, and information shared not just with me, but with Mastermind. And it seems like you're always just trying to share this message with as many people as possible, that what we think about generational wealth isn't really generational wealth. Mm-hmm. Now, we're going to tell about it in a few, but that's not for right now. That's a few minutes from now. Mm-hmm. But first, Amelia, why don't we tell the people just a little bit about you, how you become the CEO and the founder of Empire Capital Ventures, and, you know, like how did we get from you growing up in Alabama to where we are today?
Absolutely. So Empire Capital Ventures was founded to serve first generational business owners.
Okay.
Typically who look like you and I, who are sick of Uncle Sam, sick of the family members being in their pockets. They're looking to leave a legacy, and they just don't know where to get started. You know, traditionally, when we think about financial advice and advisory services, we think of our local CPA, or we think of, you know, the local Edward Jones person or Primerica rep, you know, anyone that is offering some type of an investment account to get them started. But the reality is that when you ascend to certain levels in your business, your advisory services have to ascend as well. And that is what we're missing. You know, 97% of the advisors in our community, and let me be more clear, not just our community, but nationwide, 97% of the advisors are serving everyday middle-class individuals, yet you have individuals who are literally millionaires, you know, taking advice from someone who's serving accounts on average $20 and $40 and $50,000.
So those should be two different conversations, you're saying?
Absolutely. Two different conversations, probably 2 or 3 different advisors that you would need on your team to make sure that you're making the right decisions if your net worth, you know, is more than $1 million.
Okay. All right. So I'm forgetting this one I ask you right now. You say 2 or 3 advisors, like, for example, like what advisors were those? Because I'm sure we got a lot of millionaires listening to the show.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure they're thinking like, hold up, you know, I got somebody to do my taxes every, you know, March or April, right? And then the shopping center down the street. Who are these 3 advisors they need?
Yeah, absolutely. So particularly if you are a business owner, you know, you absolutely need someone advising you on your business finances. So that may be an internal CFO or a fractional CFO, number one. Then you may have your personal advisor or wealth manager, financial planner, and then absolutely some type of tax planner, CPA on your team.
Okay, perfect. Now, did you always know, hey, like when I grow up, I want to own a firm called Empire Capital Ventures? Like, were you like 10 years old, like, you know, good at math and like, you know, this is what I want to do for a living, or did it transition to this somehow?
Not quite 10, but 14.
Okay, I was close. I felt it in my spirit. I felt it.
Yeah, you know, believe it or not, at 14, I don't know. I think it was, but it was literally watching one of my uncles, one of my dad's brothers. You know, he was investing into the stock market. You know, he was buying a new house every other year. And, you know, I paid attention to that. Like, that was just so interesting to me. And so I asked him to teach me how to invest in the stock market. And he was like, well, get a job and I'll do so. I went and got a job. He didn't do it. But that conversation has always stuck with me. And so literally at 16, I was doing presentations at colleges and universities on credit reports and scores. And, you know, 18, I got my insurance licenses, and 21, I started getting all these investment licenses, and the rest is history. But yeah, that started around the age of 14.
Now, did you start out with just launching your own firm, or did you go into corporate first? Like, what did that look like?
No, I absolutely worked in corporate America first. I have about 12 licenses altogether. Many of those came from working in corporate America. And, you know, the reality is that I've been blessed. And I don't know how exactly this happened, but I fully attribute my success to not listening to my teachers and my parents.
Wow.
And I know that sounds crazy because that's normally who you would listen to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is my teachers, my mentors, my parents, none of them had never been to where I was trying to go. And everyone was like, no, you need to work at a bank. You need to do this. You need to do that. And all of that advice, I was like, no, like, those are not the people I want to serve.
Because they just attributed, hey, you're good with money, finances, math. Then that means you need a career in banking or something along those lines.
Exactly. I was like, no, that's not what I want to do. Like, I want to be over here with the money, So, somewhere along the lines, I figured out exactly the path I needed to be in. I got a few additional licenses, and I've been on that path ever since. Until it just became so draining and overwhelming for me to continue to serve in those corporate environments because I was the only brown person there in many cases. And I don't know if you've heard the stories of, individuals, Black professionals being mistaken for someone else. And,
sure.
You just get tired of those stories. You get tired of being...
I was mistaken for somebody else just a few months ago.
You get tired of being, in a conference room and someone comes up to you and say, and they'll say, hey, you must be so-and-so's assistant. I'm like, no, I'm actually your supervisor. Nice to meet
you.
But that happens time and time and time again. And then you continue to serve on teams, helping people build their wealth and not pay taxes, and they don't look like you. And then you're wondering, like, why is this information not getting back to our communities? After, several years of that happening, I just got fed up and I needed a change. And that's when Empire Capital Ventures was created.
So back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, and I teased to it. Oftentimes, I feel like, and I'm not sure if it's Black community or just Americans in general, we talk about generational wealth. We have a different viewpoint and definition of what that is compared to what the wealthy speak about when they talk about generational wealth. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Most of us, when we think about generational wealth, we're thinking about how do we pass our house down, to our kid, or how do we pass our...
I got a pristine 88 Cadillac, Coupe de Ville, like new condition, right? How can I pass it down to my kids?
Assets, cars, antiques, jewelry, grandma's house.
Yes. Things
along those lines are typically, what we think about with, passing down assets and generational wealth. Now it's more smaller businesses, even though the kids don't want the business. But, parents and people are creating businesses, and in their mind, they're like, I'm building this for my kids because I want to leave a legacy. I want to pass this down to them. But the reality is, when we think about generational wealth, we're talking about a level of wealth where, for the next 200-300 years, that wealth still exists, and so if we really think about it, in some cases, yes, we are passing down assets, that can, that may set someone up for success where they can make that asset last for, 200-300 years. But in many cases, believe it or not, we're actually passing down debt, or we're passing down assets that will become more harmful than they are helpful.
Oh, that's good. Now, you talked about when you were in corporate, you were on teams that were helping build wealth and do things for people that weren't in our community. During that process, right, you've told me before, like Lamar, a lot of times, we were doing things that are not the things that they tell regular people to do. Is there like two different forms of education, like education or strategies or tactics, whatever it may be, that the wealthy are told to do this, and then, middle-class Americans told to do something else? Is the same things, different levels of understanding? Like what's your thoughts around that?
Absolutely. The reality is, again, going back to that 97% conversation, right? 97% of the advisors in the marketplace, they're servicing individuals who are middle-class Americans. They're from a middle-class American background. They did not come from wealth either, and therefore they don't know. It's not the client that they serve. It's not the people that they hang around with the most. And that's not their background. And so they genuinely don't know. They genuinely believe that the information that they have is what's available out there. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And therefore, if you are looking to really create wealth and build wealth and, have, $100 million in assets that you're looking to pass down, you have to get around people who have access to that level of information and who can partner you with other individuals to help you create that. That's not going to happen by happenstance. And so I think we need to do a better job in our community at evaluating our advisors and who we're taking information from. Because, for someone who is just, has $100,000 available each year to invest, investing that in the stock market is not going to get you to $100 million. It's just not. Not unless you are, on the other side of that accredited investor equation and you're doing something different. But in the general stock market, it's not likely to happen.
Now, what are some of the biggest mistakes that individuals are making that are keeping them from wealth? And I say that because, you've heard me say it, and I say it here on the podcast all the time. For a long time, I think I was under the impression that if I made money, I would build wealth. But then I realized it's literally two different educations, which I think is why a lot of people can generate a lot of money through job or through entrepreneurship, whatever it may be, but still may not end up with a lot of money, right? Because they don't know how to build, grow, protect, and then transfer wealth. What do you think are some things that are like keeping people from really building, lasting generational wealth?
Well, the first thing is you have to control your first or second largest expense, and that is taxes. A lot of people don't think about that, but, particularly when you are, higher net worth, you have a few $1 million in taxable income per year, you're probably paying $1 million in taxes or, $500,600,000. So the first thing you have to do is figure out how to control your taxes. And that actually requires a different set of education, right? Because there's only so much of a home office deduction you can write off. There's only so many cars you can buy in the business and, taking advantage of Augusta, all these things they tell you to do, right? There's only so many deductions you could take. At a certain point, you actually have to work to actively build your wealth and investments that the government wants you to invest in order for you to take advantage of reducing your taxable liability. And so if you focus on gaining that level of education, like what are the things that I can invest in that create really nice tax benefits? So I have even more money to invest because I'm reducing my tax bill, $200,000-$300,000 a year. That is how you start to build your wealth. That's, number one. And then number two, when you're talking about, going to school, education, time and effort, time and effort plays a really large factor in your tax bill.
Okay.
You hear the term passive income thrown around quite a bit, but people really do not understand what that means in terms of saving money in taxes. Everyone is all like, oh, I want all these passive income streams, but the IRS has a very, very particular definition of what they consider passive.
Okay.
And individuals who can truly meet that definition of a passive investor has the keys to wealth building in their hand. Like they can literally have tax-free wealth if they can truly meet that definition of a passive investor.
Okay. All right. So that was good. I want to make sure all of y'all have caught that, right? Got that last piece. One of the biggest things holding you back from building wealth is the fact that you're overpaying, right? When it comes to taxes, when it comes to the money you're giving back to the government. Keep telling y'all, right? Them tax returns. Y'all, you're getting excited. That is your money that the government is giving you back because you overpaid. And something else I always say too, you heard me say, business owners should not be doing their own taxes.
Absolutely not.
Even when I want a business owner to do my own taxes, but like no matter how much you think you don't know everything, right? Like you don't know the tax code and the opportunities, and you are paying more than you should be paying in taxes if you don't have a qualified professional doing it.
94% of Americans overpay in taxes.
Wow.
94.
Now, I want to go back to something you said a second ago, because you talked about the fact that, hey, there are things that the government wants you to invest in. What do you mean by that?
Excellent question. So if you really think about it, when you see various tax credits, you hear like, oh, there's a tax credit for buying this solar vehicle. There's a tax credit for rehabbing historical houses. There's a tax credit for investing in certain depressed and economically disadvantaged communities. That is the government saying, hey, we realize that there's an opportunity here. We have no interest in doing the investing ourselves. And therefore, we're going to create a tax benefit for private investors to come in and place their money in these investments to create economic engines and to bring these areas out of poverty, or to put more research and development into solar and renewable energy and oil and gas and all these things. And if you do that and help us out, we're going to reward you. We're going to reward you by giving you this tax credit, which is a dollar for dollar return on your money. It's not a deduction, it's a credit. And it's something that can still help you build wealth. And so there are a number of those vehicles that exist. Real estate is one of those things where you can actually partner with the government, invest exactly how they want you to invest, and not pay taxes along the way.
I love it. So you also mentioned another word, and I want to make sure we're clear for the people listening. Mm-hmm. You talked about an accredited investor. Mm-hmm. Like, what exactly is accredited investor?
Mm-hmm. So the easiest way to remember it is 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
This is a person that has either $1 million in net worth. So after you take your assets minus your liabilities, you still have $1 million remaining. Or you have an income of $200,000 a year. And if you're married filing jointly, an income of $300,000 a year. 1, 2, 3. $1 million, $200,000, $300,000.
All right.
If you can meet that definition and you've had that income for 2 of the past 3 years, you could be considered an accredited investor, which is an opportunity for you to invest in different investments and different deals that are not available to regular, everyday Americans.
Okay.
In fact, they probably have never heard of that term. Their advisors have probably never heard of that term because it is not something that legally can really be spoken about in the masses.
So, all right. So I love it, because I know some people saying, all right, hold on a second, Ms. Thomas. What are you telling me? There are things that I can't invest in.
That's correct. And you'll never know about them.
All right. So that's a lot for people to swallow, right? So what type of things would they be? I mean, you can't give them specific investments. Like, what type of things are accredited investors have access to or privy to that a regular person would?
So various private equity deals, for example, Pinky Coles, right? She just the owner of Slutty Vegan. She just did a Series A raise, $25 million. Those are accredited investors at that table, on that deal, not anyone else, right? Other small startups that are issuing equity in their companies, they're raising money. They're getting ready to go public on the stock exchange. Those are typically accredited investors. Individuals who are doing private deals with other individuals, and you're going to be putting up $100,000 to $250,000 of your own personal money into that deal, and you're going to go out and start drilling for diamonds in the middle of Mexico. Those types of deals require accredited investors.
Hey, if you're listening, I want you to think about this. Our community needs you. So if I need you to grow your business, it's only one way for you to do it and make it happen, and that is with TSP Propel. TSP Propel is like Netflix for Black entrepreneurs. It's a go-at-your-own-pace self-study system of over 50 plus courses. In addition, we give you resources and templates to execute faster. And we're going to do monthly calls with my coaches to make sure you get everything you need and get your questions answered. For more information, visit www.tspropel.com. I love it. And I think why it's important to have this conversation is before I heard that term from you, I think you're the first person I heard actually kind of bring it up. When I heard about it and thought about it, I was frustrated because up to that point, I literally had enough money to flow through my hands to become accredited, but I just didn't know that was the goal. So since I didn't know that was the goal, I just was doing other things with the money that didn't give me access to the special opportunities that accredited investors have just because I didn't know better. Not even because I didn't have it, just because I didn't know better.
Right.
And I think that's the importance of this conversation we're having today.
Access to information.
Yeah, and like if we don't even know what the steps are to take, we'll never tap into what the real money is and the real opportunities, because the whole time we'll be playing checkers. In the meantime, the wealthy are playing chess.
Exactly. I mean, there's a reason why you don't see certain investment deals, really advertising the genuine rates of returns or internal rates of returns that they expect these investments to make. Because by law, you can't advertise anything, greater than, I believe it's 16%. So most deals that accredited investors put their money in are going to have yields greater than 16%. And so that automatically prevents the ability to share that information in a common space, because the government does not want regular, everyday individuals to know that information, because they say in their mind, you are not astute enough to invest in those types of deals.
But you're astute enough to go to that casino, and I could literally lose it all at the craps table, right?
Yes.
I go to the horse track. It's like a lot of places I could go that the government will sanction me going and spending and using all my money, but they like, hey, you cannot put all that money into another business, sir. You're not astute enough to know about that. So that is interesting. Again, right, y'all. I mean, I think that's why it's important that we have to make sure we get educated. That's why we're doing a podcast. Why we put these people in front of you. So this is the first step, not the final step, the first step in your education and getting around these conversations, so then you can take it to the next level in your personal life. So we were talking about mistakes. So we said, overpaying the taxes, mistake. We even kind of talked about, lack of education, mistake. What other mistakes or are there any other big ones that people have to kind of hold them back from either building wealth or building it at the speed and velocity that they should?
Honestly, when I left corporate America originally, because I was fed up, my goal was to create a startup that would help, Black and minority businesses scale and move quicker. Because I couldn't understand, why we just did not have more wealth than what we had, and I eventually realized that, hey, it's literally because we're not building businesses. Our businesses are not scalable. They're not successful enough. We're not employing our own people. Like, they're just not large enough. And so when I realized that, I was like, oh, I can definitely create a startup to kind of help, channel those things and help unbundle these contracts so we have more opportunities. And, as I went further and further down that road, I started, realizing the larger problem. And the larger problem is not that we're not creating enough businesses. I mean, business ownership is one of the main tenets to build wealth. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And that's the reason why you have a job in most cases, unless you work for the government, because someone decided to take that risk and build a business. And now they have to employ people to do the work. And those people are, our moms and dads and sisters and brothers, right?
Right.
But we have to do the same. We have to build businesses that are successful, scalable, sustainable, where we can hire people. And even something I've had to learn myself, we cannot create another job for ourselves, right? That's where people get stuck. They go out and, cash out their 401k and buy this franchise, and they only buy one franchise, and you just created another job for yourself. Or you're responsible for so many duties and responsibilities in your organization, you've created another job for yourself. The goal is to build that business where you can remove yourself, it operates on its own, so you can go build something else, right? You should be able to take the profits from that one business and now invest that money into either expanding that existing business or moving into a different level of entrepreneurship or partnerships with someone. And that is, in my opinion, the thing that prevents Black America from really escalating and building their wealth. There is no shortage of business owners in our community, but there is a shortage of sustainable businesses in our community. And that is going to be what will continue to hinder us as we try to move that needle from $0 in net worth in 2053, to, 100 million.
Yeah. Okay. So that was good. We talked about lack, right? It was keeping us back. Now let's talk about what are some like wealth generating strategies we can use. And now, and if some of them are, accredited, right? You can, let us know, hey, these are things that you only can do if accredited or not, or how they work. But like, what are some things that we should be looking for where everybody listening should write these down. As a hint, y'all write it down. Write these down and do more research on it so they can learn more about these different strategies.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I would like to mention, first and foremost, is that there are a zillion and one different products in the marketplace. But there are a zillion and one different products in the marketplace because everyone has individual needs. Everyone has a specific need or a specific product that will help, round out their portfolio. So never just think that, oh, this product isn't any good. It may not be for you,
or for you right now.
So any company that only sells, one thing, or they're only pushing one narrative, I would advise you to take a step back and say, is this really for me? Number two, Dave Ramsey, has some really good advice for people who are looking to get out of debt. People who already have money, $1 million net worth. Dave Ramsey is not the person you should be listening to. Yeah. So, you want to make sure that you're taking advice from someone who's talking to you. Dave Ramsey is talking to the person that doesn't have any money in the bank and they're trying to get their first $1,000 in their savings account. He is not talking to the person who's paying $200,000 and $300,000 in taxes. So we need to definitely make sure we are taking advice from the right people. Number three, many people believe that as they get older, they're going to pay less in taxes. But the reality is they're probably going to pay more because your kids are out of college now. So you're not claiming them on the tax return. In many cases, you paid off your home enough where that interest that you are paying is minimum. You probably can't even claim it anymore because standard deductions have increased so much over the years. Okay. So you definitely need to be thinking more long term. Like maybe I need to be looking at some type of Roth. Maybe I'm at a point in my life where my tax rate is never going to be lower than what it is. So I need to be looking at Roth contributions versus traditional or regular 401k contributions. So I can go ahead and pay the taxes now, lock in that tax rate, never have to worry about those taxes again. We don't do enough analysis on our tax situation, even on our retirement benefits, before it's, too late. So that is a really big one. And that impacts not only business owners, but it also impacts, everyday people who go to work and they have a 401k and they're looking to, make the best decisions with their money. So that's huge. When you hear about, people like Mitt Romney who have, $100 million sitting in their Roth accounts, there's a reason for that. So a Roth can be a powerful tool if it's used correctly, business owner or not. So I would say those are probably some of the top things. And then number three, if you can, or number four, look into those alternative investments, those alternative investments. And I'm not speaking about crypto. If you notice that most advisors, financial planners, wealth managers, I included, we don't really advise a lot on crypto. And there's a reason for that. We consider it a non-correlated asset, meaning there is nothing that holds up the value of that particular asset. And so therefore, not speaking about crypto, but if you think about, oil and gas, real estate, invest in other businesses, just alternative investments. If you start Googling and researching that, you can actually find, funds that will even have opportunities for non-accredited investors, to invest in. They're more stabilized, they're more established, but there are definitely opportunities to invest in those avenues, even if you're not an accredited investor.
So let's unpack that a little bit, right? Because people may listen to me and know what fund is. You're saying like, hey, if there's some things that, accredited investors have access to, but they're not accredited. They don't hit your 1, 2, 3, kind of rules saying, hey, I fit what's in this bucket. They can get access and use a fund as a way to still invest in those type of vehicles. Mm-hmm. Can we talk a little bit more about that? Like, so for them, what exactly is a fund? Like, how would they find a fund, that type of thing?
Mm-hmm. So you'll probably have to do some digging around online, particularly if you have a conversation with your advisor or your financial planner and they're just not familiar, right?
Yeah.
So they may not even have access to
it. You're a millionaire. You have 3 advisors. 3 advisors may not be familiar. So may dig a little bit more.
Yeah, you still may have to dig a little bit more. Number two, if you have maybe $500,000 or more in assets that you can put somewhere, you may literally have to go work with a more private wealth management type firm, someone who can get you in front of like more opportunities as they, become available. But overall, yes, you will have to search a little bit. You'll have to do a little bit of digging if your particular company doesn't have a fund that meets it. But there are probably, you may just have to challenge your advisor a little bit, but there's something out there that exists that they could, put their clients in. They're just going to have to research it and find it.
Okay, good. Let me ask you this. What are like some of the things you think myths around wealth building that people run into? Because I'm sure like you talk to a lot of people. So what are some of the misconceptions and things they have in their mind? Like, I can't build generational wealth. And is it, because I come from a certain type of family, got a certain background, don't have a certain education. I'm just guessing what they could be. But like, what are some of the reasons, or some of the reasons people get themselves for like, hey, that sounds great, but I'm listening to this amazing podcast. I can't do that. It's not realistic for me.
Well, one, I think is because, many of us just didn't come from money, right? So now that we have a little bit of change in our pockets, we're not used to it. And, we know we're at a different place, but we don't really understand that theoretically you're in the top 1%. Now you're not in the 1% of the 1%, which is, the Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos of the world, but you're in the 1%. And so when you're in the 1%, there are things you just have to maneuver a little bit differently. You have to start thinking about your money differently and how you protect it and how you grow it. And that's why you do need, a team of individuals to help you, make sound, really good decisions collectively and not just, in a silo. But number two, outside of that, people just don't even know their own net worth. I even have clients from time to time, they come on board, we get started, and, they tell me like, oh, I'm really looking forward to being a millionaire. And like, I already know enough about their situation by that point. So, I asked them the question, so what, in your mind, what's a millionaire? And they tell me, and I'm like, and so, you already meet this definition, right? And they're like, no way. I got this and this, and I got this, that, I got this, that. I'm like, yeah. But assets minus liability equals net worth, and you still exceed $1 million. So people literally don't know what they have in their possession, which is scary in some cases, because when you really think about it, particularly for single individuals, and this is really applicable for many Black women. We have a lot of educated Black women who own really successful businesses. These businesses are doing several $1 million a year in revenue. But they don't really realize the value of that asset. They have no idea the value of their business. And therefore, because they are single, if, something were to happen to them and they were to, Lord forbid, leave this earth early, they have an estate problem and they don't even realize they have an estate problem. Because in their mind, I'm not worth, 10 and 12 and $15 million. And it just causes further problems. So I really do believe beyond mindset, just thinking that it's not possible for us to achieve because they're not around the right community or they're not around the right people, is number two, they don't even realize the value of what they already have and how they can actually grow and better leverage what they have. And speaking of leverage, that's going to be number three. We have to get out of this, I'm going to pay for everything out of my pocket mentality. We just have to. I literally onboarded a client this week. She has an amazing business model. She's been able to do $2.5 million in revenue on her own. I mean, she literally has one loan, like $40,000. It's amazing at what she's been able to accomplish. And, she's just like, I feel like I'm stuck because I want to expand, but I don't have enough money. And I'm like, but you have enough assets to go get whatever loan you need from the bank to make this happen. And so now we're helping her have a better understanding of her finances and her numbers and, helping her get her paperwork together so she can go and apply for that, $2 million loan so she can go expand in the next 8 states. But that will only happen because now she's going to use other people's money. And we have a very negative connotation of borrowing money. It's been drilled into us. Debt is bad. Debt is bad. Debt is bad. But how do you think Jeff Bezos, cannot pay taxes? It's because he's living on the money that he's borrowing. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not cashing out his Amazon stock and all these things that trigger taxes. No, he's using debt to fund his lifestyle. And when he
Wow.
die, he'll pay off that debt when he don't have to worry about those taxes anymore. And his family won't either because they've done enough estate planning. So sorry for getting a little passionate there,
No.
but debt is our friend when we want to build wealth. You have to use other people's money. You have to use leverage. You will go broke attempting to build, a 200-year framework on your own money.
Oh, that's so good. So, this is the last thing I want to ask you, because I know you've seen this, right? And well, actually, one thing before we get to that, because you mentioned the 1%. You said a lot of people in the 1% don't realize they're in the 1%. Like what is the 1%? Like, what is the line? I don't know if it's like a certain dollar amount or a certain amount. Like, what is the 1%? Because we hear about it a lot of times, but what officially is it?
Believe it or not, we are, it changes, but right now I believe that number is north of $360,000 a year in taxable income.
Really? That's it?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I'm sure there are a lot of people listening that just found out you are a 1%er.
Mm-hmm. And therefore, you might need to be operating a little bit differently than what you're doing financially.
Wow. You might be out there protesting against yourself. You might not even know it. You might be out there with a t-shirt and a sign, down with the 1%. You literally are 1%er due to that great government job you got or the business that's taking off on Shopify. You are 1%er. Mr. and ma'am, what are y'all doing out here?
Everything is political. And I mean, and when you really think about that, Lamar, like there is a distinction that needs to be made there. Everyone is saying tax the wealthy. In the government's eyes, that's people who make $360,000 a year or more. You know, they're like, you're not paying enough taxes.
And a lot of times during the political cycle, it wasn't even that, because I think they were talking about like what, $250 or more or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and some of us like $250 per household, not even like per individuals and stuff.
Yes.
So a lot of times, I think you're right? We're viewing the mega wealthy as if they're wealthy, and not realizing that people that technically are like just over that line of wealthy could be your neighbors that's going to work every day.
That's right.
Could be somebody with, not even a super thriving business, but like a business that's just getting off the ground, where they still may technically have wealth, but really they could have everyday cash flow problems. Right? So we may need to be careful with that conversation a little bit.
Absolutely.
And not get caught up in the political cycles.
Exactly. Because again, going back to that Jeff Bezos conversation, right? Even if they were to tax the uber wealthy, Jeff Bezos still wouldn't pay taxes because he's using debt. Unless the government finds a way to tax debt, which I don't know how they would do, but unless they found a way, Jeff Bezos still wouldn't pay taxes.
So again, he's found a smarter way to actually use the system to kind of game the system and get around it. But again, always, what do they say, right? They say the people pay the most in taxes are what? The middle class. It's not the people with the most money.
That's right.
And it goes along with what I've seen around business. I've been seeing a lot around business, is that the smartest people are not the people that make the most money when it comes to business.
Right.
So it's all about getting smart people on your team that kind of know the rules and what the rules are to be able to navigate that. And we're not saying, I think a lot of people are in a position where they're saying like, all right, I don't want to not pay taxes. Like, I want to, a lot of people like, exactly, they want to contribute and they want to do their share.
Right.
But I think that's what we're saying is like, you should pay your share.
Right. Pay your share.
Your share, not your share and more,
right.
Not over your share, but literally paying your share of what you should pay and not paying the share for you, somebody else and somebody else.
Right.
To live off at the same time.
And let's be clear, I pay payroll taxes, unemployment taxes, self-employment taxes. We pay all kinds of taxes as a business owner. We are paying our share.
Yes.
And guess what? If we weren't paying those taxes, that means we're not employing people. We're not hiring people. So I would encourage individuals, particularly business owners, to not think that you're not paying your share because you're doing what the government wants you to do. They want you to hire people, so they don't have to be relying on the government in the system, right? And you're paying taxes for hiring these people. So in my opinion, we're paying our shit.
And what I'd like to do, in my opinion, right? We put my opinions on it. In my opinion, what I'd like to do is I'd like to pay my share, not more than that, and then take that extra money that the government would do whatever they're doing with it and use that to pour into my community myself. Like I don't have to wait for the government to pour into my community with those funds. I can create my own initiatives. I can fund, Black nonprofits that are in our communities doing the work but don't have the funding. We can fund those people ourselves.
Absolutely.
If we stop letting our money go other places where, people may be doing things that we have no intention of them actually using the money for those reasons.
You need a strategy. You have to tell your money where to go.
That's a nugget.
Because if you don't, it's going to go where you don't want it to go, which is back into the pockets of Uncle Sam and often into communities that don't look like ours.
That's good. And into the pockets of politicians. I want to get you down into the rabbit hole. You got more lose than me, but I don't want to get you to the rabbit hole. But y'all, this is a tricky, sticky conversation. House of Cards here live on the Traffic Sales and Profit podcast. All right. Amelia, right? Like, so what's going on with you? What's next? Like, what's the vision and where you're trying to take your business and the people that you service, like myself?
So, we've been blessed. We have been in operation a little bit over 4 years. We started Empire Capital Ventures right at TSP Live 2018, and wow. We've done some great things in that time frame. We've ascended past the 7 figures, and we will probably double our staff within the next year or two. But ultimately, where I'm going next with ECV is creating those opportunities where more people can have a home where they can invest that money passively. That's going to give them even greater benefits than what they have right now. So that's really the next playing field that we're going to ascend to. There's many of our clients, they have the assets, they have discretionary income, not necessarily a place where they could put it where they feel comfortable putting it. And we're going to create those vehicles where they have a home to place that money.
Awesome. And we have so many listeners that just found out that they are 1%ers talking to you. So how can these 1%ers get in touch with you if they want to learn about the services that Empire Capital Ventures have? They want to talk to you or somebody on your team, or have you work with them on creating a 200-year wealth plan?
The best way is just to go to our website, which is empirecapitalventures.com. You can search around. There's also a contact us form. You can complete it, and we'll be in contact with anyone that reaches out within a few days. All
right, y'all. So make sure you get a hold of the website. We'll have all that information as well in the show notes. Amelia, thank you for coming out. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
All right, let me ask you one last question, and let me tack this on to what's the first step they should take in building wealth?
First step they should take in building wealth is analyze what you have, and is it really making you money, or are you losing money? Right now, we're seeing inflation at the highest rate that we've seen in 40 years. And so right now, every October, the government or the Federal Reserve sets the inflation rate. I think for the first time in 40 years, the inflation rate was set, I think it's 5.4%. That was set last October. So what that means is that, if your money is not earning at least 5.4%, you're automatically losing money. Wow. Automatically losing money. So the first thing you need to do is evaluate where you have money, where your assets lie. If you have a lot of money sitting in cash, how do we redeploy that money and get it working? Because you need to be aiming for something that's at least earning you 6% this year so you can break even.
I love it. There it goes, right? So there you go, y'all. That is your first step to get moving on this journey to real life generational wealth creation. We're talking about 200 years of planning and have something that you can leave behind, more than just that brand new Cadillac, more than just good shoes. Anybody ever leave good shoes down, pass them down? Handbags. Ladies be passing down handbags, right? But we want you more. We want more than just the handbag, y'all. We're talking about generational wealth. So thanks for watching us and listening in on this podcast episode of Traffic Sales and Profit Podcast. Hey, make sure you take action. Again, all this means nothing if you listen, you talk about how good the show is, but you don't actually implement what we do. And we'll see you on the very next episode of the Traffic Sales and Profit Podcast. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Traffic Sales and Profit Podcast. Don't forget to download and subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms. Also, visit us at www.trafficsalesandprofit.com/podcast. On that page, you'll have all the links to follow us on social, me at Lamar Tyler and the at Traffic Sales and Profit brand, in addition to information on our upcoming events, information on how to get a free copy of my paperback book, and more so that you can be the best entrepreneur possible. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode.